Hey, thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to talk about understanding uncleanness. Whenever I was getting into learning about the Torah, I realized there were issues of clean and unclean. Now, I already knew about certain animals being unclean, for instance, but there was something else going on beyond this, and it wasn't entirely clear at first. So in this video, we're going to be looking at issues of clean and unclean, first in a more general sense, and then getting into the specifics of it. So there are three things we're going to look at. There are clean and unclean animals, clean and unclean people, and clean and unclean things. To get into the issues of people and things, it is a different story. Because the natural state is that people and things are clean. But certain circumstances and events cause people or things to become unclean. One thing to recognize is that clean and unclean are not always issues of right and wrong. So just because a person does something that causes the person to become unclean does not mean that they have violated any commands. Now, there are some commands that violating the command causes a person to also become unclean. But this is not the general rule. So we have to separate clean and unclean from the issue of right and wrong. There are some correlations, but as the general rule, becoming unclean does not mean a person violated a command. In most of these issues of clean and unclean, they relate to the tabernacle. They relate to the tent of meeting, the house of Elohim, such as we see in Leviticus 15:31. You shall separate sons of Israel from their uncleanness, and they shall not die in their uncleanness, in their defiling my tabernacle, which is in their midst. So we are separating between clean and unclean, not just with animals, but with the uncleanness of people and the uncleanness of things, so that we are not dying in our uncleanness. This is connected, of course, with defiling his tabernacle. And so what are some of those actions or circumstances that cause people to become unclean? Flowing from the flesh causes uncleanness, whether the flow is running or whether it has been sealed off or bandaged. Touching or carrying the bed, seat, or saddle of a flowing person. Touching the flesh of a flowing person. Being touched by a flowing person that didn't wash his hands first, or being spat on by a flowing person. All of these things cause uncleanness. If a man's seed goes forth, it causes uncleanness. If a man and a woman are lying together and seed goes forth, they are both unclean. A woman's period, she has 7 days of separation, beginning with the beginning of the period. Touching a woman during her separation causes uncleanness. A man lying with a woman and her separation is on him causes uncleanness. And also, this is something that's forbidden otherwise. It is a violation of a command. A woman flowing blood apart from her normal period becomes unclean. Touching the bed or the seat of a woman during her separation causes uncleanness. So what does it affect if a person is unclean? An unclean person is cut from the people if he is eating from the peace offerings while unclean. And as we saw, the people are to separate from uncleanness so they do not die in defiling his tabernacle. And the priest shall not near to or eat from the holy things while he is unclean. And in the camp, the unclean people are being sent out of the camp so they do not defile where he tabernacles in the midst of. And then there is a particular procedure to become clean again. Either they have to wait until evening in some cases, or they have to wash their clothes and or their body in order to become clean again. Except in certain cases, there are additional procedures, as we saw. And in general, these issues of clean and unclean connect with the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, the house of Elohim. That Elohim does not want us to be bringing our defilement to his house. And we don't want to be defiling the holy things at his house, the tent of meeting.